As Washington, D.C.'s central library, the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library serves D.C. residents from every neighborhood and culture in our city, with offerings ranging from makers labs to town halls, co-working to concerts. We go well beyond books. Here, artists and activists, teachers and learners, toddlers and seniors converge to explore our city's past and the infinite potential of its future. Because the MLK Library is not only a place to be quiet, it is a place to be heard, to be understood. It is a place to explore the possibility of all we can be, and it is a place to just be. Welcome to the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library.
First, I want to thank God and everybody who's inspired me. So I would say two people I have to mention is Kirk Ashburn, who was a white friend of mine, a white guy who was in Anacostia for 30 years when nobody wanted to be there, who, when I had the idea of writing a book, he knew a little something about it and helped the first book I wrote, Drinking Muddy Waters, get published. So I want to give him a shout out because he's not a gentrifier. He was somebody in Anacostia who wanted to be there. You know, he was helping black children, and he helped me. So that meant a whole lot. So let's give Kirk a round of applause.
Where is Kirk?
He's not here. He's in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. Send it up to Pennsylvania.
Yes. So the second is Natalie Hopkinson, who was one of my partners in Don't Mute DC, the co-founder, who was the editor of the Washington Post. And my first op-ed that I actually wrote was What's Snitching and What's Not. And it was a story that people to this day in the black community is still scared to talk about. And one of the things that I teach people is the difference between snitching and citizenship. And that people who are not in the streets, right, who want things to go right in their community have the right to call the police. I mean, of course, they should try to help people first. That's a given, right? You should try to help people before you just pick up the phone and be Becky. But you have an obligation to help people. But at the same token, if people don't want to help, sometimes helping them is calling the police, because I know it helped me in my life. When I went to prison, it's what saved me, because a month after I got locked up, me and my father lost my brother, and then 6 months after that, I lost my best friend. And jail was what saved me, right? So I just want to thank those two people, because it's very important. She gave me the opportunity because I wasn't a writer. I didn't go to school for it. She said, do it, write it. Take all that knowledge in your brain, put it on paper, and it can always be edited. And I just got better and better and better at it. So without somebody giving me that opportunity and encouraging me, like we have to encourage a lot of the young people in our community, I would have never had the heart and determination to keep going with 15 op-eds later. I don't know another person who had over 15 op-eds in the Washington Post, right? People who are scholars don't do that. So I just want to thank them too, because without them, I know for a fact this would have never happened.
He became a scholar with his 15 op-eds, as you can see. Wait a minute. Oh, yes. Vision of an Urban Scholar. I like that title. Jeff, how did you hook up with Ron?
Ron and I have known each other for a long time. Is this on? Ron and I have known each other for a long time, and when he came to me and he said, I've got this collection of op-eds and I want to put it together in a book, I had about three thoughts that came to mind. First off, Ron's got a way of expressing himself across multiple platforms, and one of the most effective ones I find is when he picks up the pen and puts it to the paper. He writes with clarity, purpose. He writes with passion and experience. He's lived the words that he writes about. And as a writer myself, I'm a reporter and a writer. I can relate to that. It's the pursuit of writing. It's not everybody can feel comfortable putting their name on something, and Ron has been prolific. So I thought that was a great honor to be asked to do that, and I was excited to work on it. The second reason is he and I know each other really well, and we've been talking to each other regularly for about 13 years, and we'll get into a little bit of our origin story in a second. So I thought it was going to be an opportunity for us to put our heads together with some common cause, and that's discussion, problems, challenges, solutions in the black community in DC. The third part that appealed to me is that he and I don't always agree, and we've got an interesting background, and I thought it was going to be real fun for us to sit down and try to figure out how to do a book, because I've never done a book, and he has. So, I had to sit down and think about it as a reporter, how to go about the process of of putting something together. He's got 16 op-eds that span 10, 12, 15 years. Some of them could have been written yesterday. The very first one in the book is about Grand Theft Auto, the video game, and it could have been written yesterday. He wrote it, what, 10 years ago or something. So we just decided to sit down across from each other like this, down in the basement of Check-It, and we just talked like we always have. And that was the easy part. We got about 4 hours of tape down, doing interviews for each and every one of these op-eds. And so then we sat down and we organized the chapters, if you will. We thought about themes, we thought about goals, and we started talking about how to put them together so they'd have some sort of through line. We wanted it to be authentic, and we wanted it to be something that took you from a beginning to the end of a discussion, and somewhat following his life and his path. And then we got to work, and we've been at it. We sat down the first time in January 2019, and so that was the process, really.
Yeah. There's a saying that there's no such thing as good writing. There's only good rewriting and rewriting again and again. And when they talked about making all the tapes and going over them and working through the themes, those are as much a part of the writing process as actually putting pen to paper. And Mo talked about just writing it all down and then letting it edit and letting that process. A lot of people don't want to write because they say, oh, I can't write anything like that, but they don't want to rewrite. It's what they don't want to do. And they don't want to let people see what they write either. Which the other thing about Mo that's interesting is as a character, I've run across few people who can be the exact same person wherever they go, and I mean, this guy goes a lot of really different places. Like one night, I'm with him over in Woodland Terrace. He was finishing up mediation with some gang activity, stopping violence. And if you don't, I didn't understand, maybe people do, but to mediate gang violence, sometimes you come in contact with people who are really upset. You come across people who are in the act of looking for somebody, which means that they are primed and ready to go. And this is a guy who kind of steps right in front of that, stops that wagon. I don't know exactly how he does it, but he stops it. People, they want to grit on him. He grits right back. And then the next day he's over at the DC Council, and they're trying to do the same thing, grit on him, make him mute Mo, and he grits back at them the exact same way. And I'm saying, well, yeah, I don't know how he learns to do that kind of thing. But maybe you'll talk a little bit about bringing peace to these difficult situations, because we are really talking about life and death. And both of us, you way more than me, been to a lot of funerals, seen a lot of dead bodies, and you wouldn't think you were in the nation's capital. But here we are. How things look to you, and just give some of your take on bringing peace.
So I'll talk about this. One of the chapters in the book, I talk about what a crane would never lift. And basically we talk about how we did a great thing in the city by building the city up. But what happened is we didn't build the people up simultaneously. So a lot of people got left behind. We took the trades, the music, and all those things out of DC public schools, which helped build the middle class of our city, right? The black middle class. And then you hear about the video games and all those things. And then we start training our children really to be hired assassins, right? Because we trained them how to kill, we trained them how to all this stuff is in video games that we wrote about in op-eds. And then we took away all the social platforms, the positive platforms that young people had. Like we had raggedy buildings, right? Before we got $80 million schools, but those schools were being utilized every day. The auditoriums, the cafeterias, the fields by our children. I remember Ballou Senior High School when they had the boys club in there, and hundreds of children were programmed every day, and they just had to put them out at 8 o'clock because that was their safe haven. So all of those places throughout the city are gone. Swimming pools and everything went to people who came in our city who didn't care about the children, right? And then when we start seeing them do all this crazy stuff, we acting like, what the hell is wrong with them? I beg to differ. What the hell is wrong with us? Because all the things that we had, they didn't have the opportunity to have. And then you look at in our community where 87%, I believe, the 15 and 17-year-olds that live in impoverished neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. don't have a mother and father in the household. So you got all this going on simultaneously, right? And then drugs have gone in our community, right? And I talked about marijuana. Why I was against marijuana being legalized without an education component. That's in here as well because I knew what was going to happen. So what happens a lot of times in our progressive community, allegedly, we rush things and push it down our throat without thinking it out. So what could become good policy becomes bad policy because now all those children are on drugs, right? All those children who now have a habit of smoking marijuana, right, which is very expensive, when they can't afford it, they rob to get it, right? Something that they're addicted to. We thought about this because we're in our community and we know what the effects it's going to have, right? So with that being said, we have to have a strategy that addresses these things, even with social media. I talked about the effects it was going to have, and now if we were going to address violence now, it's not the same as when Peace of Halls was here. So if I was the person leading it, part of the major component would be how do we use social media, which is a major influence in the behavior of our children now, how do we utilize that to combat it? So it would be a massive strategy on using social media and other things that children would gravitate to, incentivize it, like the program we were doing called Flip the Trap, where we incentivize rappers to create positive content, right? And then we work with the radio stations and we work with other people to get them attention for doing the right things. Most of the crimes that the young people are committing today, right, are not for money like when I came up. They do it for clout. So if they're doing it for clout, you mean to tell me we can't figure out how to give young people attention? If they're doing all this stuff for clout, and when I came up, they were doing it for money and for streets and hoods, we can't figure out how to reverse what's going on. So I just think that we have to go back to empowering young people, right? Believing in young people, holding young people accountable, because another problem, you can't take a young guy and he carjacked somebody tonight, right? And then you let him go, this morning, and you let him go tonight, and no assessment is done, no plan and action is put in place to help deal with whatever the problems he got, trauma, whatever it is, and then you expect because you said something nice to him and said we care and let him out, that something going to change tomorrow. And then when he commits the murder, all these so-called advocates, all these so-called smart people are gone. They leave that child hanging for us to deal with. So my thing is we got to think this stuff out better and come up with a real strategy and plan with the people who it affects the most involved. Like everything that happens in D.C., everybody know what the Peace of Halls did before politics destroyed it, right? But everybody still to this day is trying to duplicate what we did. They still trying to duplicate what we did when they threw the baby out with the bathwater. And everybody knows it. But we still don't come back to the horse or the horses that helped make it happen. You know what I'm saying? And we bring all these people from out of town and our city to tell us what we need to be doing when we created it from the beginning.
How do okay, I almost see hands getting ready to come up, or maybe they're waving hands. You want to say anything about talking to him about this and getting?
The remarkable thing about the way Ron's communicated in the book is that these, as I said, these are themes that are somewhat timeless, sadly enough. And for instance, the Grand Theft Auto chapter is about the dangers, the ills of violent video games. That he wrote that, a dozen years ago. The very next chapter is about platforms, and I think that was inspired by efforts to shut down go-go music and to run kids off corners where they were trying to play go-go music. And his point was, why do we want to discourage that activity? Because, where are they going to go with their energy, with their message, with their, with their passions? Are they going to steer them towards, violent video games? So the title is give them a platform or they'll create one for themselves. And this is what Ron talks about when he's talking about people that, go out and do things and brag about it. It's some sort of a status. I mean, these are things that he was writing about years ago, and now we're talking about them still today. What a crane will lift is sort of the bookend to that, because now we're having that conversation that we weren't having back when he wrote about Grand Theft Auto, because the city wasn't gentrified the way it is today. So every step of the way in between with these various chapters, he's talking about various subjects that there's no linear time frame. These things were all written back, forward, and these are all Thanksgiving turkeys. You buy what you want and beg for what you need. The kids can't afford to go to the baseball game. These are all things that are all part of a dialogue that start with 12 years ago and come up to the present tense. Community wealth, communities growing together and sharing resources and trying to build themselves up. I mean, these are all things that kind of fill in all the steps in between this kind of narrative arc. And it's remarkable to me that he's been able to keep this kind of drumbeat going all these years, and I'm really happy we were able to pull it together.
And I want to say something to that. So everybody knows about the Go-Go, Don't Mute DC, and I was blessed to work with civil rights leaders that worked with Martin Luther King. I knew James Bevel, who organized the children to end segregation. I knew Amelia Borton Robinson, the mothers of the Voting Rights Act. I knew Annie Lee Cooper. I knew all those people was in their living rooms in Alabama. I was blessed. So I know the power of music. Music, there's nothing that's happened in the world without young people in music. So I know the power, the social power of music, right? And I understood when they took go-go out of the schools and when they shut down all the go-go's. To this day, young people in Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia have nowhere to go to be children like we had. They don't have no party spots. They have nothing. So now they go into their neighborhoods and they have parties with drugs and guns and all this other stuff because we shut them down. We shut them down. So they had no chance, no opportunity to be children. So they living as adults because we did that. The government did that. One violent act happened, and they shut it down. Nobody can have fun. What we did with Peaceaholics, we had a thing called Peace Goals. And the mayor at that time funded what we did. We had all the rival neighborhoods come in one, it was written in the Washington Post, come in one place. But for them to come, they had to go through a training. They went through the training. They learned about the civil rights movement. They learned about the peace process, and they signed an agreement. If something went down or they saw somebody had a problem with, we had a mediation room at the venue. We only had to use that one time. So when we would have all these go-go bands at the events, people would come up, young people, $40, $60, $80 trying to get in. And we was like, no, you got to go through the training. So what I'm saying is we can create, right, a space where we are doing surgery on our young people without them even knowing it. You see what I'm saying? And that's all we did. We did surgery on them. Second thing, processes. So we had relationships. Like I teach young people what a gangster is. A gangster, if you look at any gangster movie, the gangster had a relationship with the court system, the judges, the police, the streets, the doctors, with everybody, right? So when we were able to do our work, we had a relationship with them. Them people will push the young people to us, and the young people know if they work with us, we can get them out of the situation they were in. But if they didn't work with us, they had to go face the situation, right? I'm talking about youngsters with all type of charges. But with me, if I walk you out the courtroom, I'm going to hold you accountable. It's none of this little baby stuff about, he had this. No. We all going through something. I'm going to give you all the love you need. But once I give you all the love you need, accountability comes with that. We cannot live in chaos and accept killing. We cannot accept killing. That's not acceptable behavior. And we got people in our city who let young people think it's all right to kill. It's not all right, and they got to know that. That's a taught behavior. And I don't believe in that. And I'm telling you, I hate to say it, and I hate to get in politics, the far left in this city is just as crazy as the far right. When you got people who won't come in the middle and have a conversation where we all can work together and take that friction and make a diamond because we don't agree but our hearts are pure, you get what you have today. That's what we have today. Nobody's willing to listen to each other, right, and disagree to the point where we can agree to work together to create the diamond. So our young people watch this. They watch a bunch of hypocrites who won't work together, but then we all come and say we're trying to save them. And that's what we're dealing with right now in Washington, D.C.
Told you the man can preach, right?
Look, people who don't hit the nail on the head when it comes to dealing with the children today, I can understand. I mean, I can appreciate your lack of tolerance and patience, but this is not easy. This is not easy. What he has to do is basically, when he walks out of the courtroom with them kids, he's basically with them, and they are with him, and they like become his own. You know, he knows whose couch they're sleeping on. He's helping them find another place to sleep. He knows who's out to get that person, who's running from who's trying to kill this person, and getting in that mix. And that's just, I mean, they just don't even have job description in government for people who can do that. And
government can't love. People can.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Government can care, but the community can love.
Yeah. This is serious. So I'm seeing him working. One of the things that was most interesting, I think it was Woodlands and maybe Chopper City on the Constitution people. Who knows? That's the other thing. How do you keep track of people who just coming through a neighborhood, or who's going to catch a bus going through this neighborhood, and now this neighborhood is not the neighborhood for that bus to be going through anymore, because gentrification just moved all the neighborhoods together and mixed everything up. Somebody's got to keep it sorted out, and Mo seems to keep it sorted out.
And I want to say Mo and the great people he had working with him kept it sorted out, because, and this is the other thing with the model that we had. Women were very intricate in what we did. Everybody wasn't a former returned citizen, like, so we had a thing where we had people who cared, and we trained them how to work with the young people. A lot of people think you got to be a gangster. A lot of people think you got to be this big masculine man. You need some guys like that. But the most important thing was we had people who loved. We had people who were willing to go to make the ultimate sacrifice for our children. And they were willing to hold the young people accountable. But the difference was, Cortland, versus today, when the phone rung at 3 in the morning, if you didn't answer that call, you couldn't work for me. And because I was a leader willing to do the same thing, I raised the bar for my staff. You see what I'm saying? And that's what we don't have. The other thing, the difference is, there were only a few organizations back then. So we had 60 staff, and our staff was all over the city. So nobody could go without me know what they were doing. Now you got 50, 60 organizations, right? But who's really managing what's going on? Who's really holding it accountable? You feel what I'm saying? So the difference is, even though it wasn't as much money that's out there now, we got more results. You know what I'm saying? And we weren't perfect. We were not perfect at all, but I didn't go for the government's bullshit. The government didn't control me because they gave me money, and that was part of their problem with me. Just because you give me money, you're not going to stop me from doing my job of saving my people. And some people will sit back and be quiet when they know something is wrong, right? And you cannot solve a problem like that. And that's why I always didn't get where I wanted to go. But I would like to definitely thank Dr. Deborah Evans, who was like a mother to me, and how we really got started in Ballou. J-Rock got killed. Nobody would go in the building. Nobody would go into school. Everybody was scared. And her and Vera White, two women, because no black men would take the job and go into school, stepped into school. And we took a group of returning citizens, And we came and cleared the hallways up, volunteered, right? And we got that building clean, and we changed things around, right? And then that's when the Peace of Harlem was really started, right? And it was because loving woman who told me, it was a mayor by the name of Anthony Williams. I was like, I don't like him. I can't stand him. And she said, Ron, sit down, young man. Sit down. Let me tell you this. There's some things you do well, and there's some things he do well. And maybe he might not have all the right people around him, but he can help you, and you can help him. And if you're going to help these children, you need to deal with Anthony Williams. She put us in a meeting, and the rest was history. So I love you for that. Because you taught me something that a lot of people today need to learn. We got to sit down and work with people, even if we don't understand each other. You know what I'm saying? And she taught me that as a mother, and I love you for that and will never forget it, Dr. Evans.
How do you do that? Because you really get people kind of upset. And you got Jeff upset. You
gonna tell him the story?
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead. Go ahead, tell the story.
And the point, I'm hoping the point will be to see how you get beyond these serious differences. Differences that some people will stop speaking to one another for the rest of their lives, but somehow you manage to.
I'm gonna let him tell the story, but I'm gonna say one thing that Marion Barry said. He said, "You have no permanent enemies and no permanent allies. It's all who's working with you to help your people and the interests of your people. So anybody who's willing to help me help my people, I don't care nothing about the other stuff. We can work together to help the people. That's all that matters. And like, I know I'm not perfect. So long as I know I'm not perfect and I got some garbage with me, I can deal with anybody else's garbage as long as we try to help the people. It's just that simple. And the other thing I learned from the civil rights leaders that I work with was they told me that it would never have been a movement without some good white people. So, no, that's what they told me. So what I do is I try to find good people wherever they're at, no matter what color, their religion, their party. Like, I'm an independent now. I've been a Republican, I've been a Democrat. I hate parties. I love good people.
So I think you probably got about 12 out of 16 chapters in there. It's a good reason to pick up the book and see how Ron really puts these things together in what we did to put together with this kind of, like I say, this narrative through line. The story about how we met is an interesting one because one of the themes of the book is overcoming differences, communicating with people who you disagree with, and which is at the root of so many problems. He and I met in the summer of 2009, I believe it was, and I was writing a story for a local free weekly newspaper on the Peaceaholics and on Ron. I had been reading about him in the newspaper, and I thought, I want to get to the bottom of these guys because they're really controversial, and they're in the paper a lot. And so I'm an investigative reporter, so I started kind of looking under the hood, kicking the tires. And the very first time that we met in person was, as Cortland would appreciate, up at Congress Heights after a shooting. And sure enough, I got there at night, and the police are there, but everybody's trying to talk to Moten because he's got his finger on the pulse, and he's clearly on the scene, and he clearly is, has some understanding of what's going on in the neighborhood. Well, that summer turned into like I call it an arm wrestling match because I kept coming back to him with things that I was finding out, and I'd say, well, what about this? And we'd argue about it, and he would kind of front me and push back and try to intimidate me somewhat. And we went through that. That's the way you should do it, by the way. If anybody's ever writing about you, talk to the reporter. Tell your story or it's going to get told for you. And I respected that. And, I think we had mutual respect. I don't think he liked the story itself. And in fact, he expressed himself in no uncertain terms that he did not like the story. And he took issue with a number of things, but somehow, after that experience, I caught a call one day in the newsroom at my new job, and it was Ron Moten. And he wanted to talk to me about things in the community. He wanted to talk to me about things in the city. And we started talking, and we never stopped talking. And that is, to me, at the core of the message of the book is community, communication, dialogue, overcoming differences, being accountable, right? When you do something and somebody wants to expose it, you know, tell your story, but accept the truth of the matter. You know, and I said to him one day, I love this, this is in the book. I said, you know, it's really remarkable how I wrote a story like that, and your impulse was to turn around and try to build a bridge with me. And, you know, he just kind of shrugged like it was no big deal. I said, well, that's what men do, you know, and that's just a very simple, it's a very simple message there. And I think this is one of the things he's trying to pass on to the young ones. You know, the other message being express yourself, you know, and that was one of the main goals too.
I got to say this one thing about that. So after the story that I didn't agree totally with, I went to the city paper, to its editor, and I told him if they didn't let me deal with what he wrote, I was going to shut the paper down. So I said, we will protest at every sponsor that you have. So this, I don't think this has ever been done in any newspaper in the history. They let me write a 2-page rebuttal to Jeff's story. And he was pissed off.
And I wanted to come back with a counter rebuttal. The editor said, no, you had your chance, now he gets his.
Oh, we're at 7:10. I'm gonna open it up for questions, but the other thing that I want to make sure that's point out, even though we know Moton, you know, almost a celebrity status, maybe the mayor one day, who knows? He does things, a lot of things that we don't know about, and he has working with him people who make sacrifices that we probably may never know about. They don't, the names aren't there. The fabric of our community that holds together, especially with the grandmoms who do so much.
Our grandma.
They have unsung, it's full of unsung heroes, and these are people who make enormous sacrifices that we don't hear about until we go to the funerals. And then, you know, maybe a child will come back and say, I wouldn't be here if they hadn't done this one little thing, or what may have seemed to some others like a little thing, but in that person's life was huge. And I just want to honor that, the sense of sacrifice that it takes, and the idea that the people who really do the great work are the ones that we just have to keep an eye out for them and honor them when we can.
Like Debbie Roundtree, who was like one of the best civil rights lawyers that this city ever had. And she was like another mother to me. I used to stay over her house as a child and watch her and Gwendolyn Haywood. And they would teach me how to hustle legally, right? I'll never forget, you know, people who taught me. So many people who taught me. I don't talk about it a lot, but me and my father found out maybe about 15 years ago that Malcolm X was our cousin. So I'm like, okay, now I know where this fire comes from. It's in our bloodline. And, you know, you learn about yourself. And one of the other people I want to acknowledge in here is KK Stand Up. So this is one of the Check-It members. He used to terrorize Gallery Place years ago. And they didn't give me a dime for working with Check-It. I did that without a dime from the city. They called me for help. The LGBTQ community wouldn't help them. When they went for help, I helped them, took some of the owners, the leaders, and we stopped there together. We started a clothing line, and we own 3 properties on MLK where the Go-Go Museum and everything else is about to be. But to me, the most inspiring thing about KK is when KK mother died, KK mother left her a voucher. And I was like, KK, it's programs out here where you could take that voucher and get a house. I didn't have to push KK. KK was given an opportunity. KK went and got into the program, HPAC, and KK just bought a $450,000 house in Deanwood. The HUD program gives you money, dollar for dollar that you pay on your rent, and then got $80,000 from HPAC. And what my thing is to my people is, Stop sitting around waiting for somebody to drop something in your hand. Look, they giving $200,000 away to buy a house. So when I have youngins in my DOS program and you call yourself a hustler, don't tell me you're a hustler and it's $200,000 on the table and you can't go get your credit score up to 630, right, to buy that house. I'm not sitting around pacifying no damn grown-ass children. I'm going to tell you where the money at, and I'm going to push you, and if you don't take it, guess what? All of us are one day from being on the street with a bad decision or something wrong happening. So we keep on pacifying our children and our adults and don't get them to take advantage of the opportunities, then we are the problem. So we got to get out of this mentality that somebody owe you something other than an opportunity or a hand up when you falling down. But a lot of people like KK had the same opportunity, but because this system trains you that somebody owes you something other than an opportunity, they stay stuck where they at. And we have to change that. KK's partner has an 8th grade education, but owns over $2 million worth of property with me because she never gave up. She never quit, and she stuck with something. But that's not hard to believe because she ran a gang of over 200 people. So I was smart enough to know it's something special about this person if she can control 200 people, even with an 8th grade education. See, I'm smart enough to know that. It don't take a social scientist to figure that out. So we got to take the strengths of these young people in our community, you were talking about the violence, utilize that strength and empower them to be a part of the change that we want to see. Not pacify them, not keep on, like when they do something crazy saying it's okay, it's not okay. They get tired of me. They be wanting to curse me out. But guess what? I love them too much for them to say, forget Mo. Can't forget me because ain't nobody going to love you like I do. But guess what? I'm going to hold you accountable, and we got to hold each other accountable, and that's what it's all about. And the system that's set up right now, the system of care that me and Mama Joe used to work on together, it's not set up to do that. And we got to make sure it's set up to do that.
Yeah, no, that's good. Congratulations. Yeah, I remember. Check it is tough. Check it is no joke. All right. Let's have some hands.
In my life, I'm a very intellectual person, but every single time messed up things happen to me, who is actually committing it? Young black dudes. Like even right now, my lip is busted. My tooth got busted open, and it's like always young black dudes. But I'm a very honest, friendly, intellectual dude. So it's like, why is it that physically, functionally, most of the harm that I'm experiencing is coming from these wild, young brothers? I literally just got jumped.
Let me answer that for you. So I'm going to say it in my first book that I'm giving everybody who buys a book. It's a saying that Reverend Bevel told me that says, hurt people, right? So let me finish. One thing that happens when you are going through a lot of trauma in your community and you never get healed, right? You start being numb to trauma. And then what happens is it's easy for you to inflict pain on other people. That doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it right. So you have a lot of people walking around that's traumatized and have never gotten any service. I'll give you a prime example. I have people who, in Check-It, made it to over 20 years old who have been raped, who have been neglected by their families, who have been kicked out, right? All these, I can go on and on, kicked out of school when they were the ones getting bullied, everything, and never got no services. And they were mad as hell. They were mad as hell. And when I went through every one of their stories, it was all the same. So they were down here wrecking havoc, jumping people, beating people's ass, everything. But I understood the why. The question is, why is there so many people running around like that and we're not holding them accountable, but also put them in a situation where they can heal and change before it's too late? That should never happen to you. It should never happen to me, right? But it's happened to my mother. My mother got jumped in the alley by some young. So all of us have that experience. The question is, what are we going to do to make sure we have a system of care that really addresses the problem? That's right. And that's what you are talking to, brother. And I feel your pain, and I thank you for coming and speaking on it. Appreciate you.
What might be done for him?
Well, he needs to be healed. Because guess what? There's a lot of people like him that go through the same thing, and then eventually they start being violent or unproductive because they're traumatized. So he should have somewhere to go to be healed, but also the people who did that to him should be held accountable. Because when people do things like that to you and they walk around like they didn't do anything, it leaves a person feeling a certain kind of way. And even though we got to help that person, they still got to be held accountable. And I'm telling you right now, I wrote an article about the police. Like, I don't believe in defunding the police. I believe in getting police from our community, hiring black men and women who go to Anacostia, who go to Ballou, who won't go to Roosevelt. Because guess what? When you bring people in our community who don't understand the children, right? Who don't understand the community, yeah, they beat our children ass and lock them up. But Officer Buck in Ballou, who I talk about, Officer Buck, if he locked you up, the children said you deserved it because he loved you. He loved you. So now you got all these people running around in our community with guns in the car. You know why? You know why everybody got a gun in the car? Because they know the police ain't going to pull them over. Facts. Ask anybody in the street, they'll tell you. We ain't worried about getting pulled over, so we carrying our guns. A lot of people carry guns because they're afraid. That don't mean they violent because they carry a gun. If you were worried about the safety of yourself, you're going to carry a gun. So what are we doing to make young people not feel afraid? You see what I'm saying? So these are the things that we're not having honest conversations about, right? These are the things that, people pay all the games and won't pull real men like Kirkbone in the back who got locked up for rapists who really can work with the youngest. They won't pull him in a room and give him a real grant because he could be what Ronald Moulton was and some if given the opportunity. You see what I'm saying? People like him are not given the power to do what he can do because he has the respect of the community, but also he going to hold people accountable who work for him because he's not going to let them mess his name up. So that's what we need. He going to go to that youngin' who assaulted you and say, look, you're going to have to come and make amends with this guy or else you're going to have to pay for it. That's what we need in our community, like this sister right here who's doing programming in her community and getting those traumatized young people and not giving up on them. That's what we need. Not somebody who come, just let them out. It's going to be, they're good little children. Let them out. And then they go out and do all this stuff and think it's no accountability. That's the most insane thing that we can ever do. And it happens because they're not the one getting the bullets. They're not the ones getting hit upside the head. They're not the ones getting jumped. Because guess what? They know if that happens to them, it's going to be some accountability. Facts.
That's one of the things that I really like about Ron's writing when he puts his thoughts down. He honors things from his own past that I didn't even actually know about. The degree to which he grew up around strong women with connections to the civil rights movement. And although he veered off of the path for a while, made some mistakes, when he had a political situation where he got into some controversy, he went back to the roots of the lessons that he was taught growing up. And a lot of people don't know that. He went on the civil rights trail and started bringing kids along with him and sort of re-educated and relearned the lessons that he had been taught. The things that he talks about, people don't often want to hear. It's actually a sort of a conservative message in a certain sort of way. He's talking about self-responsibility, accountability, sacrifice, as Cortland mentioned. And those are things that I didn't really expect to hear based on our long-term relationship. These were things that I thought were really strong and sort of counterintuitive when people talk about social problems. They're looking to blame somebody or ask the government to come in and help them. And you know, we have a rich city, and we have a lot of inequity, and the government does need to deal with that. But I think that the power of his words and speaking directly to his community, I really also hope that people across the city read this, because the people he's talking about, the progressive community, I think there's some lessons in the book for them if they really want to understand the communities that they're supposedly advocating for. And I think they'll find, as I did, it's a little bit more than meets the eye, you know. It's really an old-fashioned, old-school, positive message, and you know, rooted in accountability, rooted in openness, community dialogue, and you know, I think that's one of the strengths of putting the pen to the paper, you know. And one of our prime goals was to encourage kids to do that. Write about your experience, you know, share it like you did today. That's powerful. That's powerful for you. It's powerful for those of us you're sharing it with. And I think he leads by example from that, and I hope that you appreciate that. And I'm awful sorry to hear about the things that have been done.
Let's see if we can get this gentleman and then the lady there with the mic, if it's so. Okay, or either one of those orders. She can go first and then him.
Okay.
Yes.
My name is Asia Tamimi. I'm with Rock Now, Rehabilitating Our Community is Key Now. It's an organization I started in 2014. I've been advocating for my community over 20-something years. I know about Ronald Moten and Peaceaholics because they were in my community and they were doing a wonderful job. My goddaughter Kia speaks highly about you. I've watched how he changed, his organization changed her. She was fighting at the drop of a dime everywhere she went. Now she's working, got a good job, she's got children, you know, and I'm proud of her, and I saw the effects of what he was doing in my community. I have 3 sons. All 3 of my sons have been shot in D.C. My youngest son was shot 8 times last year. On his 2 days after his 26th birthday, he was shot twice in the back of the head, once through the lung, a centimeter from the heart. They had to repair his esophagus. He's paralyzed. He was shot through the spine. So I take this seriously. I'm not against people having firearms that's, legally and have been trained properly, because I'm a firearms instructor with NRA, and I teach law enforcement. Also, I'm a licensed bounty hunter for the city of, for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, look how he's looking at me.
I'm looking at my next profile subject.
No, every time I say that, people look at me like, what? Because Chris Cuomo,
We'll talk afterwards.
Okay. I was just on Chris Cuomo's show, and he said, oh, you can't catch me in that dress. I said, you want to bet? So, anyway, I wanted to comment on what you were saying, Ronald, about hurt people hurt people. I just posted that on my page the other day, yesterday actually. My first class that I had for life skills, I have a life skills course that I teach to those who are at risk to gun violence, the shooters and those who have been shot. They would sometimes go and grab some of the guys from the block. It'd be 22 people in my class. And I asked them, majority of them have seen so many of their friends and family members shot in front of them. They've seen somebody who they were just outside talking with on the block, who they're with every day. Now they see them laying on the ground with their brains on the ground. Like he said, hurt people hurt people. These young men and women, they need some counseling. As black people, a lot of us, we shy away from counseling, but they really, really need some help. They need somebody that's gonna come into the community and sincerely love them and not coming in, making promises to them. I had 8 people shot in 2 weeks in my community. We lost 4 people from my community. One within 24 hours, it was 2 murders within 24 hours. All of them are like family. And when I say family, they grew up from the cradle. So the effects that I saw on the people in my community was horrible. I had to stop my son who's paralyzed, who couldn't mourn like everybody else. I had to stop him from killing himself. I watched him go out in the streets and try to stroll his wheelchair into oncoming traffic. So when you say hurt people, it's true. And a lot of those young men and women out there, they're hurt. And they feel like everybody come into the community, make promises, and lie to them. So this is why they trust me. who they call Mama Chopper, Chopper Mama, whatever. This is why they trust me, because they know that sincerely I've been doing this from day one. It's just something that's in me, you know? So we need people like that in our community that's gonna help our people, such as Ronald Moulton, who came in and did what he did. He has a plan. This is something that they need to bring forward, to go forward in our communities to try to help us, you know? Like I asked him today, what are we gonna do? We got 15, 13, 14-year-olds out here with firearms. That's a serious situation. I know how I feel when I put one on. I feel like, okay, I'm ready for the world. So imagine a 14 or 15-year-old who doesn't even have proper decision making until the age of 24, whose frontal lobe hasn't developed yet, who's out here with a firearm. It's a hazard waiting to happen. So we just, you know, I appreciate you and what you're doing. And I say Ronald Moulton for mayor.
And I thank her, because it's other people's time to do what I was doing. My fight now is for equity, because once we get the young people and get them off the street, then what? If they can't own no property, if they can't own a house, if they can't be a part of the change in D.C., why would they change? So my fight is equity. And from Don't Mute D.C., some of the policies that Kenya McDuffie put in place because of the movement that went on, because I'm going to tell y'all something. In this city, it was a crime, and that goes back to Marion Bird, to create policy for black people. Okay, whenever you create policy for black people, it's a crime. Whenever, like Scotty Irvin, a brother from our community, came from the bottom and helps everybody. There's people on this council, progressive council, that criticize success. So that transcends down to our community. When somebody sees somebody in the community make it, then we want to criticize them and down them. That's a taught behavior, and it goes down to our children. We teach black people to hate black people who are successful. That's what they do. So some people feel like if they're not showing us what to do, teaching us what to do, then it's a problem. It's a problem. That is a problem. But I still have hope, because we got people like Chief Diane Grooms who just came in. Somebody, former chief, the greatest police officer we ever had in D.C., who's a white woman, right, who came in our community and loved us, loved Check It, loved us at the Black Hole when we had the Go-Go's, didn't get it shut down, who loved us. And she can go walk anywhere in this city today, and all she gets is love. We need more people like her in our city. When they opened up the WARF, the first thing she came to me, Ron, I got some $25 an hour jobs for young people. This is to throw wood in the fire pit. She didn't go take those jobs outside the community. She brought them straight to the community. And we need more people like her. I love you, sister. I love you.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Turner, and first of all, first thing I want to say is I want to first thank my daughter for informing me of this meeting. You know, somebody who's open-minded, informed, want to be informed. You know, I thank my daughter for giving me the opportunity to come here, because I'm a product of the Lincoln Heights area. And when you came over to Eastgate and Simple City and did what you did, is when I first heard about you, even though I was incarcerated.
Right.
But I heard about the work that you did over there, and I grew up with a lot of those cats over there, and I first would like to say thank you for that. You know,
yes,
thank
sir.
you for the sacrifices, the things that you brought, you know, to the young black men and women in those communities. It's still reverberated today. And I had to make sure when my daughter told me that you was gonna be here, I said, hey, okay, guess what, Jeff? Come on over here and whatnot, right? Because I saw you rather, at the Go-Go on Good Hope Road.
Okay.
When you was over there with the sisters that was playing the band and all those.
Belladonna.
Okay, exactly. But I just want to say I thank you for all that you do. But the most important thing that I want to say is that I've been through the struggles. I've been there, seated on Oak Hill. I went through the trenches, but I turned my life around. You know, I'm a young businessman. You know, I hold down a job. I have my own place. But the struggle that I'm having right now is, as listening to this young lady, but listen to everybody, is I'm tired now of the violence that's going on. I'm tired, and I'm trying to figure out what can I do to be. See, now I'm gonna do this because I had it in my mind. I remember Malcolm X saying, I'm a black man, I'm not a white little girl. He said, the little girl asked him, what can I do? He said, nothing, go home. No, I don't want to hear that. I'm a black man. I want to do something. I want to get involved, and I want to be a part of the solution versus the problem, because it's hitting home. It's hitting so close to home that, you know, every day that I go home, I have 3 girls, and I have a granddaughter. And I go home, and I'm always praying, oh, Lord, just don't let nothing happen. Because right now, today, as we walk out, anything is happening. It don't make a difference. She just said 13 and 14-year-olds carrying guns. Their brains are not developed. The Hipparchus, the Amygdala, none of that is developed. Or if it is, something wrong with it. Because what we're witnessing, what I'm witnessing, and what we're witnessing as a city is something I've never heard. I was born in 1962. I'm 60 now. And we didn't come up like that. We never heard of. I'll give you a prime example, and I'm going to close with this. When the young lady got put off the bus on the W4, that hurt me to the core. That tore something out of me, man, that will never be replaced. To see something like that happening, not only young men, but older adults, man, taking somebody's mom. Wait a minute, didn't you not first think, damn, I came from a mom? And here I am, man, putting my hands on this lady. So guess what? Today, before I leave and after I purchase a book, I need somebody, man, to point me in a direction that I can be an asset.
So I want to say this. So I think the first, where you stay at now? Where are you staying?
I'm still in Lincoln. I'm not in Lincoln Heights. I'm on 58th Street.
What I tell people, like, part of the problem is we got to start where we at, right? So you're in Lincoln Heights. So I would advise you to get with some people, some brothers and sisters who care, and start from there, and start helping some of the young people. And what happens is, when young people see young people change, they want to be a part of the change. Right now in our community, it's cool to be a fool. I'm going to say that again. It's cool to be a fool. So when you start working with those young people, and you start helping them, and you start finding out all these resources that exist, and getting the people who are getting funded, making sure they connect to these young people and do what they say they're supposed to do or are doing, right? Because that's part of the problem too, right? When these young people start seeing love and start seeing its benefits and changing, they will change. I'm going to say this too. In those communities that you're in, some people got to go to jail. I said it earlier. Jail saves some people from killing themselves or getting killed. Do they deserve 100 years? No. But we already did the groundwork to change that. But what's going to happen is, if we keep on letting it go the way it's going, people are going to lose empathy. And the last 15, 20 years of work that we did, most people don't know the name Returned Citizens came from a group of us who were peaceaholics and said we're not going to be called convicts and everything else, and changed the name. So we changed that opportunity, created that opportunity for us not to be labeled as animals, but we would go right back to being labeled as animals and getting tons of time for crime if we don't let some people know that there are consequences for certain behavior. But the difference is, I'm gonna close with this, when those people got locked up, we didn't leave them. We followed them to prison and worked with them.
That's right.
Because a lot of them going to beat their charges. And then when they came home, they knew they can trust us and we cared about them. And they were ready to be part of the change in their community. So it's understanding balance. Once again, I'm going to say this again. The far left and the far right are the problem right now. Because nobody will come together and work together and come up with a strategy in communities like yours that really will work and really make sense. Because right now, a lot of this stuff is not making sense. It does not make sense to say fuck the police. It makes sense to say F the bad police and get rid of the bad police, but none of us want to be the police. If we did, we would put on a uniform. So we got to let them do their job and hold them accountable while people like you do what they got to do in the community so they don't have to deal with the police.
Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm proud of you, Ronald. You know that. And I know we talk a lot, and I really like what you said. And also, Ronald, when you talk about the system of care, a lot of times people come into our communities and want to fix us, but they're not willing to do systemic change. They're not willing to look at themselves and fix themselves. And we got to begin to realize the manifestation of why young people use the gun. And so we have to make sure that it's a balance. And Chief Grooms, you're an example of systemic change and how that has to work too. And so also when we look at our culture, and I hear you talk about equity, we also have to realize that is not our nature. Being violent, that is not our culture. So we have to begin to look beyond, and like you said, love and all of that. But the other thing is just as you said, about being hurt, being attacked. So now what you do is you become a part of that process and tell these lived stories. But what's most painful is that even in the movement and everything that Ronald's talked about, that is not the culture of African American people to be violent. It's historically, it's true. And so we have to begin to talk about this love and the transformation. I heard Ronald say it's clear people, white people. No one is not that. It's all about our children. Our children are fearful. Look at the construction. Look at the city. Look at the things that are different. Look at the streets that are being changed. Nothing is familiar to them. So it's not just fear of violence and hurt being hurt. It's also fear of where am I going to go? Everything before us, even as adults, my city, Chocolate City. And I tell people, Chocolate City hasn't changed. It's history. It doesn't matter the geographics and who move in here. And we have to begin to build into our children and see. And we all got to learn to work together and stop being jealous and envy of each other. That's white, black, purple. And also, institutional, intellectual learn that we have to still put on the banner. Even our press, I consider that a part of the system. What are the next steps to transform that so we can begin to see the difference in our community?
So I start with what we're doing at Check It. The main thing is finishing that so it can be a model of how you build equity, because the government invested a nice piece of change there. But they do a lot more for other people, but they invested. So my thing is creating a model to show why it's beneficial to invest in the people. And then once we do that model, more people can be invested in, and then we can start showing young people why you should change, why you should do this. You know, most people don't know there are a lot of businesses that start out to Check It since we've been there. But we started because somebody gave me an office space, right, for free, and then we started paying $500, and then it went to us raising $70,000 without the government, and people like Chief Grooms, and then we fixed the building up, made ourselves valuable, then went back to the government and got $2 million. You see what I'm saying? It's a process. And we got to teach people the process. Yes. And we didn't wait. People told us to do a nonprofit. I said, not again. We did a for-profit and created a social enterprise. And that's what we got to teach our young people, how to be businessmen and businesswomen the right way, because they already doing it in a lot of cases. But they don't have the guidance, like I said. So and then we got to show them how to get brick and mortar. So it's a process. So that's my main thing. It's about equity, like I said. And I'm willing to help anybody who's willing to listen, because I got to be honest. So many people think they know everything, right? And then you got people who hadn't been on the stove and been burnt. Like every time I went around somebody who was educated and had knowledge, I sit back and absorbed it. That's why I got so much up here. It wasn't because I knew everything. It was because I was willing to listen to people who learned so I don't have to learn all the time. So we got to teach people how to listen. And we got this divide going on right now where the young people don't want to listen to the old heads because the old heads look down on them, and the old heads think the young people are not worthy of dealing with because what they see on the news every day, And that's, I'm going to close with this. We got to create another vehicle of another platforms of media. Because the stuff that we absorb every day is traumatizing within itself. The stuff that our young people see on social media every day is traumatizing, and it eliminates hope. When you see all this stuff, there's no way in hell you can see this every day and have hope. So we got to have platforms of media that give people hope and tell other stories than the bleakness that we see every day on TV.
That's a good. Thank you all very much for coming, and I think that's a good note to close on. Okay. Oh yeah, it's his birthday. Happy birthday, Mo. Happy birthday.
Hey, can everybody give my father a round of applause, y'all? In my other book, my first book, I got a chapter called Never Too Late for a Father Love. My father had some challenges early on. He was there, here and there. But I tell you this, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without my father. And I tell young people, never give up. Because my father, when I was out here doing all this stuff with Peaceaholics, right, I would have been a terrible dad if it wasn't for my dad, who filled in the gaps when I had to be out there at night watching my children, telling me what I need to hear when I didn't want to hear it. I love you, man. I appreciate you. So I just want
I just want to say one thing, because I was a witness as it unfolded, and I used to cry all the time. He know that, being so happy seeing people coming in there like this, mad as I don't know what, and nobody else wanted to deal with. But when they felt the love, that's what it was, Ronald. You know, it wasn't like they all was so smart. It was the love. No, for real. And the love allows you to unfold.
The mic. You got to put the mic.
The love allowed you to unfold, you know. And I watched it because I know about a whole lot of things, you know. And I seen you debate with Barry, with Vince Gray's campaign manager. I seen you crush all on Yvette Alexandra. I seen it. And you had, about 8th grade education before you went and got your other stuff when you got your...
In prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my GED in college and prison.
Before he became an urban scholar with vision.
Yeah, but it was love was the ingredient where they keep trying to emulate the Peaceaholics, but it was about love. And as snake venom is used to cure a snake bite, they used the return of citizens as the antidote for the children, because they had been where they're at. And it worked like magic. I seen God. I always seen God. I'm just so happy. I'm crying with tears of joy and stuff. Make up for a lot of the messed up stuff that was in my life. You know, it helped erase away a lot of my pain.
All right. Okay. Do we just close by closing? So let's close. And
Let's thank the library, MLK Library. Thank you for everything, the partnership. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And those of you who want to buy books, we'll be over there right outside the door. Appreciate all the support.